Mr. Chairman, we had a huge election over the weekend in Texas with a 31 percentage point flip from the Trump victory in 2024 to a Democratic victory in 2026. Is it just an aberration or has the wave started?
No, it's a pattern, right? I mean, it's what we've seen across the country in these special elections, and only the margins are getting bigger. And so, I think that shows you that the enthusiasm and the fight is all on our side, and that people are tired of what the Trump administration is doing to this country, and that the broken promises that were made in terms of making people's lives better and the effective, attacks that they've seen on our individual people and their constitutional rights and the outright murders that have happened in Minnesota. I mean, at this point, what you're seeing, I think, is people who are tired and fed up. Um, and that's only good for us as we head into the general election. We have our own big primary tomorrow in Saginaw Bay region for Senate, and then whoever the candidate is that comes out of that will be incredibly important to holding control of the state Senate here in Michigan. So we're going to get to test if this is going on in Michigan as well, and it'll be an all hands on moment for Democrats in Michigan and Democrats across the country to make sure that we hold that state Senate seat.
I was talking with some professional pollsters and others who are deeply enmeshed in campaigns about the polling results that we're seeing. And what they're saying is that the pollsters really aren't taking into account enthusiasm of voters as they go into the election. And enthusiasm right now seems to be all on the side of Democrats.
If you look at the Detroit News poll that came out, actually, they did test the enthusiasm part, and from those that said they were definitely going to vote, they all of a sudden big leads were opened up in all of the races for Democrats. So I agree with you that as pollsters are trying to figure out what the electorate is. I mean, the hardest part about polling is that if you don't have the right sample of who's going to vote, none of your math actually matters. So that margin of error of whatever's listed in the poll is only among those that they actually guessed were going to actually turn out and vote, and that obviously is different than what reality is. And what we're seeing everywhere across this country is that Democrats they have much more enthusiasm and are ready to get out there. So I do think that we get to test that theory in Michigan, and I'm excited to be part of it.
An interesting story during the week, too, coming out of Tim Skubick, who's been covering politics in Michigan now for about 50 years. He seems to know what's going on at this point.
Indeed.
And he says that it looks like President Trump is encouraging 78-year-old Perry Johnson to run for governor because he's so ticked off at John James.
Yeah, I mean, we're super excited about Perry Johnson running as well. I mean, like, the reality is he spent $8 million last time, ran as a quality guru on somebody who couldn't even test the quality of the signatures that he turned in and was thrown off the ballot. And then he ran for president in a campaign where I don't think he ever reached one.
I don't think he made it to Iowa.
Now is yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, but spend millions of dollars on that. I mean, and now is vowed to spend $9 million in this primary. But I understand the frustration because John James is like the invisible man and doesn't show up anywhere, and is barely campaigning. So, I gotta understand the frustration with their candidates, but I mean, I would be shocked if Barry Johnson is the answer that you really need at this point in this process. But he'll make sure that the Obs are rich and can buy a new wing on their house in the Virgin Islands. So that'll be fun. I don't see. At this point, I would say that all of the Republican candidates for governor are really subpar, and this just adds to another one of that. While we have strong candidates on our side, I'd rather be us than that.
You have in the race for Secretary of State a candidate on the Republican side who apparently is making up stories about election fraud that doesn't exist and using that, one, to promote his own campaign and two, to attack Jocelyn Benson, who is certainly the leader right now in the gubernatorial campaign.
Yeah, the only way to win in that convention is to lie, because the only thing that they care about is, was the election stolen? And because that's a lie, and there's no way to there's no actual evidence of that, you have to play into all these conspiracy theories. And Anthony Ferlini, for a long time, tacked to the middle when he was in the legislature, and now is trying to tack to the extreme and tell completely bogus, stories out there, because he knows that's the only way to win a Republican convention. So, the we've had John James now talk about how the election was stolen from him on several occasions.
And Mike Rogers is saying the same thing.
It's the biggest group of sore losers I've ever seen. When we teach our kids, right, we talk about being a good winner and being a good loser, right? And these people they just can't accept the fact that they've lost so many elections. But that's okay. We're to give them another opportunity, Walt, to show how to be good losers again. And so I'm excited to do that here in the Michigan Democratic Party.
One of the stories the Republicans are trying to float nationally with some success is that Michigan's very competitive primary for the Democratic Senate nomination is a weakness for the party. We've got three really strong candidates, all of them very qualified. How do you see it?
I think that's a strength. I mean, I think that when you look at it, for far too long, we have been um, seen as a party that chooses its candidates. And in that race, we have actually real choices that people get in the party get to make. And I think that's a really positive thing. And so having three strong candidates, all who were much better than Mike Rogers, who can't even figure out where he's running. I mean, he was campaigning in Florida again last week. His nicest house that he owns is not, in Michigan, it's down in Florida. And so he's almost pulled it out last time, so he's got some confidence, but the electorate has changed quite a bit. People are angry about what's happening right now, and he doesn't seem to be able to pivot off of constant support of the Donald Trump agenda. So when Medicaid cuts were happening, he said he supported it. When the terrible things were happening in Minnesota, he said he supports them. When he talks about, invading Greenland or whatever else nonsense is happening, Mike Rogers, uh, who used to be, I thought, interesting. Now he's not interesting at all. All he does is follow whatever Donald Trump does. And so, I mean, I just think that all of this shows, even in the gubernatorial election, they don't care about voters. They care about one person, Donald Trump. If they keep Donald Trump happy, they think they can win. I think when you look at Michigan, most Michiganders are upset with Donald Trump. So that's not a way to win a general election, but it apparently is the only way you can survive in the Republican Party.
One last item, and that relates to the independent candidate for governor, Mike Duggan. And the party
Yeah.
has started to expose some of the weaknesses of Mr. Duggan, and it's not very pretty.
No, he has got one insanely thin skin. I mean, for somebody who is running for high office, I think he talks about me and the Michigan Democratic Party more than he ever talks about what he'll do for voters. But beyond that, what I think is the willingness to say anything. I mean, the idea that he also is, pandering to the Trump vote, not willing to stand up for Medicaid cuts, the partnership with ICE, which is just awful. But then the other thing that I think is really important is that he has shown his ability to tell stories that just aren't true. Whether it was when he told people that the dirt that they put in their community would be clean, and now he's saying, "Oh, well, we didn't have any way of knowing." That was your responsibility. And this idea that all of a sudden, the promises he made to people that this toxic dirt wouldn't end up in their communities, it wasn't a real promise. I don't think that's actually true. I've watched the videos. I know what he actually promised people, and they didn't meet it. But on the other side of that, the story he told last week, about punching down on trans kids and claiming that Democrats were holding up an education budget because of a bill that didn't exist, is an absolute lie. And you had so many members of the legislature that said that it just wasn't true. And when asked to provide evidence, they just said, "Oh well, we had private conversations, or we had this." It's all. I mean, it's frankly bullshit, Walt. And so, at some point, when you're willing to sit there on stage and just make up stories in order to try to earn people's votes. I think it's just sad. And, I mean, and the other thing that I think is most indicative of all this is when he was mayor, he never called any of those things out. When he was not a independent candidate for governor, he never actually called those things out that were happening. It's just now, all of a sudden, he has a recollection of a story that isn't true that happens to fit the narrative of running as an. I think it's silly. It's unfortunate that his ego could not take the fact that he couldn't win a Democratic primary. But at the end of the day, he sounds every time more and more like just the same old Republican bullshit. And so we have to tell Democrats, don't be confused. And the independents who are looking for something different, what's going on in this country, Mike Duggan isn't it. He's he's not an outsider. He's the ultimate insider who's willing to say anything to get elected. I've seen that politician run very many times, and I don't think it's what people are looking
Well, let's wrap it up with one last question. Did you get to see the Melania movie over the weekend?
for. I did not. No, although
Go
I
figure.
will say this, I might have rather watched that than the Michigan State basketball game. I mean,
Either
uh,
one of them.
rough one for us. So, I mean, I've seen that the reviews have not been great, but if I had to make a bet, all of the Republican candidates and Mike Duggan will be, at a showing of the Melania movie and telling you how great it is sometime in the next week.
Well, my theory is when the Oscar is given out for best documentary this year and it goes to another film, President Trump will demand that they give her the Oscar.
Well, FIFA probably will. I mean, FIFA will be putting out a Oscar award or best documentary award. Whatever participation ribbon that you get in soccer will be handed to Melania Trump.
Or maybe the best foreign language film.
Sounds
Thank you
good.
so much, Mr. Chairman. We'll see you in a week.